This is gonna be an interesting film to talk about. Okay, we have a new animated film that just dropped on Netflix this past week from Sony Pictures Animation, and it's called Fixed, their first foray into making an animated film for adults. It's a movie about a dog who's about to get neutered and is spending one last night with his friends before his trip to the vet the following morning. And this is a film that I am really not sure how to fully feel about because it is quite a divisive one. Without a doubt, this is one of the most polarizing animated films I've ever reviewed where people have differing views on it. Some have said it's funny and think it's a great raunchy comedy, others have said it's terrible and a really bad misstep. And this is not just a film that has been polarizing viewers. It's also been polarizing Hollywood studios as well, because this has had a troubled path to get released. And there is quite a bit of backstory behind this film, so you better strap in because it really is quite a story. For those that don't know, this is the latest animated film from animation legend Genndy Tartakovsky, the creator behind shows like Dexter's Laboratory and Samurai Jack, as well as the director behind Sony Pictures Animation's first three Hotel Transylvania films, aka the good films in the series, because this one... yeah, we don't talk about this one. And I've enjoyed all these various projects due to their cartoony nature, their fun characters, as well as their lovely animation. Lately, though, Genndy has been branching out into more mature animated stuff, which includes the final belated season for Samurai Jack, and what I think is his best work to date, Primal. So, it seemed quite fitting that Genndy would take a stab at making an animated film for adults, and for what it's worth, he has been trying to get this film off the ground as far back as 2009. It was eventually announced that it would be made at Sony Pictures Animation back at 2018, but for years the project remained in limbo with not a lot of details about when it would be released until in 2022 when Genndy revealed in an interview that rather than Sony's normal distributor, Columbia, the film would be released at Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema instead. However, a release date was never announced by the studio, and the years kept getting pushed back and back from 2023 to 2024 and then to 2025. It was unsure if it was ever going to come out. And then it seemed like it was really unsure if it was going to get released at all. In 2024, Warner Brothers decided to give up entirely on this movie, and they ended up selling the rights back to Sony. And this was met with a lot of controversy by the film world. Mainly because Zaslav has done a lot of these so-called tax write-offs with movies that he, for some reason, doesn't want to get out. One of which was the still unreleased Batgirl, as well as the most recently saved Coyote vs. Acme. And it seemed like it was worried that Fixed was going to be another one of those projects. However, Tartakovsky assured that it would get out one way or the other, albeit under a new distributor. One problem, though. None of the studios wanted it. None of the major players offered to take it off Sony's hands, and one of which even included Netflix initially. If you had to ask me why, my guess is that they were probably worried about the film's raunchy concept, as well as the idea that an adult animated film would be a hard sell in theaters, but we'll get to that in a bit. But then earlier this year, Netflix decided to release the film anyway, and it's now officially here after a long wait. So, you would think that after all that trouble, that would be the end of it, right? Well, not really, because right afterwards, the first trailer for the movie dropped, and...
that was really bad.
oh boy. To say that the response to this first trailer was negative would be an understatement. People really hated this trailer. And I was shocked too. I didn't like it either. It just seemed to highlight some exceptionally unfunny bits from that film and seemed to epitomize the worst trends in adult animation. That being the fact that it just seems exceptionally immature. Because there's an unfortunate misconception with a lot of execs that animation is a kids' things, and these kind of projects seem to be filled with a lot of stuff like sex, drugs, and lots of profanity because, hey, having animated characters do stuff like that should be funny, right? I mean, that's not to say that it can't be used and it can't work. South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut is a perfect example of this. But that's because the use of it comes with a point. Most of the time, though, it's mainly there just for shock value and nothing else. A good example of when this didn't work was probably the last big raunchy R-rated animated film we got, Sausage Party, which I know some people liked, but I personally hated it. I mean, this kind of stuff is just tiring and unfunny. Hearing animated characters swear all the time just for the lulz gets old quick.
They're eating children! Children!
Ha ha ha, that hot dog said the F word. How hilarious and knee slapping. Here, I'll say it. There, where's my $1 million? So yeah, it's a big reason why I wasn't exactly sure how to fully feel about Fixed. I'll admit I was excited for it at the beginning of the year, though that trailer definitely tempered my expectations and got me worried that this was going to be a disappointment. Though, I'm always down to give everything a chance. Like I said before, bad trailers are pretty common with good movies. Anything is possible. So, how was Fixed overall? Was it better than that trailer made it out to be? Well, yeah, it is definitely better than that trailer, I can say that, but I can see why this film has gotten the divisive response it's been getting, because I'm a bit divided on it myself. There are things about Fixed that I like, and there are things about Fixed that I don't like. It's a film that's really going to test your limits for how much you like this kind of humor, and for me, it was a film where I did find some of the stuff pretty funny, and there was a lot of stuff that I really didn't find funny. I certainly don't think this is an awful film at all, and I certainly think there's far more ambition in this than something like Sneaks or Smurfs, which were far more cynical movies than this. But having now seen this, I can now see why studios were so hesitant to release it after so long, because it is an odd film. How odd, you may ask? Well, let me just give you a brief synopsis of this film as cleanly as I can, because this is a film that really does stretch its R rating to the fullest. It takes place in Chicago and is about a dog named Bull, played by Adam Devine, who has been in a very obsessed state of wanting to play with his bone. He's having a good life with his pals, Rocco, played by Idris Elba, Fetch, played by Fred Armisen, and Lucky, played by Bobby Monahan, while having a crush on his next-door neighbor, Show Dog, Honey, played by Catherine Hahn, and being in a rivalry with the Show Dog trying to win her heart, Sterling, played by Beck Bennett. One day, though, after seeing a dog who's been neutered at the park, Bull realizes when he gets home that he's about to go through the same process as well the very next day, and not wanting to lose his pride jewels, runs out into the city with his pals to have one wild night out. That's basically the gist of it. And based on that premise, you're probably either going to be on board with this film and find it hilarious, or you're going to be disgusted and think it's a comedy black hole. As I said, this is a film that has been really divisive, and having now seen it, I can see why. And as much as I hate siding with the studios, I can also see why this film was on the shelf for as long as it was, because I think they knew this was going to be divisive. And I can say that's how I feel about this final film in general. I'm pretty torn on it, though I will say this. I did not hate this movie. Hell, I didn't even dislike it. I'd much rather take this over Sausage Party any day of the week. And as far as other directors' passion project films that didn't exactly work out goes, this is certainly one of the better ones. It's not like, say, Megalopolis.
So go back to the club.
How is that a real film? I'm fairly certain Coppola probably lost his mind while he was making Apocalypse Now when he came up with that, so how did he not realize that this was going to be a really bad... I'm getting off track. But yeah, as I said, I can't say I'm in love with this either because it does have elements that I didn't vibe with. Though I will start off talking about the elements that I did love in it, and the biggest highlight by far is easily the animation because it is fabulous. Every time a new traditional animated film made in America is released, I'm usually gonna relish in it, and I can say that this is a gorgeously designed film. Tartakovsky brings a lot of vintage influence into this from the likes of classic Looney Tunes, with the character designs, which were designed by the brilliant Craig Kellman, and the backgrounds, which have that rich, warm depth to it that was noted in a film like Lady and the Tramp. It's also wonderfully over the top and expressive at times, and there were moments that did get me laughing just from the animation alone. It's a beautiful looking movie, and easily the biggest highlight by far. The other element that should get a ton of praise in this film is also the voice acting, because the actors do a wonderful job bringing the characters to life. I think that both Idris Elba and Kathryn Hahn give the best performances in the film as Rocco and Honey. They definitely brought a lot of their goofy energy into this. And I will also say that the music in here is quite good too. So, yeah, there's plenty of stuff that I do like here. Though, where it divides me regards to the story and characters, because the biggest problem with the movie, by far, mainly lies with its screenplay. I'll start off by saying this. I'm not going to analyze this film for deep themes or emotional cores or really get nitpicky with this material because this is not a film that you need to study deeply since it's a comedy. The main goal for any comedy is to fill it with tons of jokes and to make the audience laugh. And I can say for what it's worth, the film did make me laugh on occasion. The film's premise itself is one that is silly, but it's certainly one that, if done really well, could generate a lot of massive laughs. And there are jokes in this film that did get me to laugh, and that is the important thing. The film is certainly not completely unfunny as the trailers made it out to be. I think the biggest laughs of the movie mainly come down to the film looking at dogs in a completely different way than you would expect, and not as, cutesy-wootsy as you think. So, basically like The Secret Life of Pets if it was trying less to rip off Toy Story and more focused on actually being interested in what dogs are like when the humans are not there, and also how they might act if they go loose while looking at the way that humans present them in the real world. I think the entire dog show competition scene is actually really great stuff. Bull and his pals basically go to it looking for Honey, and while there, they see the dogs looking somewhat brainwashed and filled with a lot of doubts while being presented to the judges. And I think it's actually pretty funny commentary on beauty pageants as well as contests dogs enter. I thought that was a brilliant scene. I also think the moment where Bull and his friends roam around the streets of Chicago is also one that does have a handful of good jokes in it that got me to chuckle. Mainly one bit involving a squirrel. That was pretty hilarious and dark. However, as much as there is good comedy in here, the film also does have a lot of comedy that really isn't that funny. Now, I will just start off by saying that I am not prudish when it comes to raunchy humor. If it's done correctly, I can actually like it. I'm someone that really loved the Damien Chazelle film Babylon, and that was a far more raunchier movie than this is. But in order to make something that's raunchy work, there needs to be a point to it all that makes you think about it rather than just ha-ha gross stuff. And this film does have a point to some of the gross stuff, and it also doesn't. The film does get to some low common denominator stuff you would see in adult animation by filling it up with tons of sex and profanity. And while some of it is a bit funny at times, a handful of it bounced right off of me. It's mostly shock value, and I just don't find that interesting. There's only so many times I can hear a dog say the F word before I'm like, yeah, I get it, he's swearing. Is there more to it than that? Though, I think it depends on who you're showing it to. There are a handful of sequences in here that I cannot talk about because they are flat out gross and I do not want to get demonetized. And I'll just say they will either make you laugh or they will not make you laugh. And for me, I sadly didn't laugh at a lot of the jokes. One of the biggest face-palming moments was when Bull passed by a stoner's car, and then he gets high from the weed coming from it, and it goes into a drug sequence. Like, come on, this is basic. Seeing random animated characters getting high off of drugs for no reason other than haha, they're high as a kite is not funny. It's lame and it's overdone, and it's a joke that has more than run its course. And worst of all, it's pretty pointless. And it's really a shame because there was a lot of potential with doing something funny with a dog going wild on the night before he goes to the vet. But because the film goes with some pretty obvious stuff you would expect in adult animation, it just bounced off of me. And I think it doesn't help that adult animation has really stepped up the bar, both with the shock value as well as the ambitious scale on what to do with the medium this year. You compare the shock value of Fixed to the stuff being shown on South Park right now, and it's kind of night and day. And another reason why South Park works compared to this is that it has much more developed characters because the characters in this film don't offer much. Despite my praise for the voice acting, the characters themselves are very flat and underdeveloped. You don't really feel attached to them because you only get the basics of who they are. Honey is probably the most developed character in the film because she's a show dog that is seen as perfect, and yet she has plenty of insecurities about it and wants someone to embrace her for her flaws, which is what she sees in Bull. But she's really the only one I got a lot out of. I barely know anything about the others. We don't get a whole lot out of Bull except for a bit of frustration of wanting to be with Honey and him not wanting to lose his, pair, but that's it. His friends don't offer much except that they're there for support, I guess. I mean, there's a bit of an arc with Lucky wanting to be in a relationship as well, like Bull, but that's not really touched upon. There could have been something with Fetch and his relationship with owners, given that he's put in clothes and he calls his owner Mama, but the film doesn't do anything with that either. And the other characters, like Rocco and Sterling, don't offer anything at all, apart from the former being the best friend of Bull and the latter being a stuck-up bully. So, when your characters are as underdeveloped as they are, it's really hard to feel attached to their journey in the end. And it's really why I couldn't get a whole lot out of this. And I feel bad, because I know for a fact that this project was something Gendy was passionate about for years. But I will say that I am glad he got it out here. Plus, I still have nothing but respect for him as an animation legend. I'm sure this film might do a lot more for others, and I'm happy if it does. I actually like that a film like this could get made, and one that is getting conversation about it, especially with something this divisive and polarizing. Though, as for me, Fixed is a film that just left me a bit underwhelmed. While its animation is great, and it does have a bit of moments that made me laugh, the film is a bit uneven due to it having plenty of jokes that really fell flat for me, as well as its characters being too underdeveloped to get attached to. I didn't care for this film personally, but I can say it's a film I still do respect even if I don't fully like it. And hey, it might do something for you if you're curious. If you like this kind of raunchy comedy and are looking for more like that, this is definitely your cup of tea. But if you're not, this is not going to make you change your mind. Where you stand on the stuff is probably how you'll feel about the movie itself. As for where I stand on it, I'm giving Fixed a 6. It rhymes. Fixed a 6. I am a bit underwhelmed that I couldn't really get much out of this film, but I certainly don't regret watching this, and I am still glad it got made. That being said, I do wish that I liked it more than I did. While this film certainly doesn't bark up the wrong tree, it's a film that I think should have been, well, for the lack of a better term, a bit more fixed.
Honey, this is not that.
What do you call it?
I don't know what to call it, but it isn't sex.